Donald Trump was also determined to like Mark Carney. He's sort of like wiggling his eyebrows a little there.
Wink
He's
to
doing
the journalists, yeah.
That's it. And
we're heading down a slippery slope. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today, coming out of the world ranking of independent journalism, Canada's ranking in the world is dropping drastically. Amnesty International wants Canada to take 11 million illegals from America, and we've got the mainstream media on a full tack dog mode on Pierre Poilievre, boosting up Mark Carney. This is paid off media to the max. Let's jump into this. Got this one. Former Liberal MP Eric Kuzmierczk has demanded a recount in Windsor after riding flipped conservative for the first time in its history. So it goes on to show here that only 77 votes separate the two parties, and this missed Elections Canada's threshold for automatic judicial recount of 0.1% by just 7 votes. Next up, we got Amnesty International wants Canada to welcome U.S. illegals. They're saying we should allow nearly 11 million people to come in through our borders. So this one on Rebel News, this was initially reported by Blacklock's reporter here. Amnesty International calls it the humane thing to do, though they number 11 million, including 750,000 in border states. Be a leader. The budget officer reported that federal spending on each undocumented immigrant averaged $14,321, with costs potentially reaching $33,700 due to case backlogs. In 2023, room and board for illegals cost $769 million, according to December 7 testimony at Senate National Finance Committee. Why? Why are we paying for this? Where's CTV on this one? I guess CTV's too busy reporting on the by-election costs or Danielle Smith's $10,000 trip down to Mar-a-Lago to try to ease things over with Donald Trump before the election to report on this. Illegal immigrants in Canada could number 500,000, says Migrant Rights Network Executive Director Said Hussein.
How many people are undocumented in Canada and how many you anticipate might want to apply?
One of the major concerns is that there is no good estimates of how many undocumented people there are. The range estimate is from 20,000 to 500,000. We believe that for this reason,
20,000 to 500,000. That's how bad our statistics are. We don't even have a ballpark within 10 or 15, 20,000 people.
A program should be broad and inclusive to allow people to come out from the shadows and enter the family of rights by applying for permanent residency. Instead of trying to determine caps at this point, it is crucial that we understand that this is about equality and fairness. And if there's some people who are excluded, then that's not equality. That's just discrimination.
What's not equality is Canadians breaking their backs, paying taxes, and getting nothing in return for paying those taxes. People showing up and getting free hotels, claiming refugee status, when really they're coming from countries that are not threatening to their lives. Talk about inclusivity and fairness. How about you start there? Moving on, we've got the Independent Press Gallery coming out with this. So the rating has dropped in Canada once again. Independent Press Gallery is sounding the alarm after Canada fell to 21st place in the 2025 World Press Freedom Index, down 7 spots in just 1 year and 13 spots since 2015. The sharp decline coincides with increased state control over media, both financially and legislatively. The Liberal government has expanded censorship through Bill C-11, granting CRTC power over online content, Bill C-18, which is forcing tech platforms to pay government-approved media, as well as the $1.4 billion annually that goes to the CBC and $600 million bailout funding that rewards loyalty and punishes independence. So we can see that here. This is the 2025 results. So the countries in red are the worst, like China and Russia and India, all these countries. We're not surprised by this. Ethiopia, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Venezuela. More notably, which is off screen right here, you can see Norway is number 1. Norway is always number 1. Estonia, Netherlands, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Ireland, Portugal, Switzerland, Czechia, Germany, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Lithuania, Latvia, New Zealand, Iceland, Belgium, Trinidad, Tobago, United Kingdom, then Canada. We are worse than the United Kingdom, where they have laws where if you say something that someone else doesn't like, then the police will show up to your door and throw you in jail. That's how bad this is now. On the side here too, you can change the year. So we go back to say when Trudeau was in power. It looks a lot different. We were one of those green countries. Moving over to the mainstream media, they're on full attack of Pierre Poilievre in full defense, full campaigning mode for Mark Carney and the Liberals. We've got this one. Mark Carney's trip to Washington is already a winner. Funny, this was posted 2 days ago, as in before Mark Carney went and met with Donald Trump. We got this one from CTV saying body language expert says Trump showed respect in meeting with Carney. Pretty sure Donald Trump spent 4 minutes at the end of the press conference talking about how Canada doesn't deserve to make cars and America doesn't need Canada's cars and Canada's this, that, and the other. And what did Mark Carney do? He did nothing. He just sat there like a good little boy and did nothing. Was that his elbows up moment? Got this right on CBC's own YouTube page here. Carney passed the test of Trump's Oval Office gauntlet, says former diplomat. Got this one. Carney did what voters wanted him to do. Be the adult in the room. Got a clip here coming from CBC as CBC Watcher has stated here the Carney turd polishing shows no boundaries today at the CBC. Truly embarrassing.
And I did think the way he tried to use his sense of humor to diffuse the situation was striking, and it does hold some significance. Let's take a look at another moment where that is on display, where Donald Trump is again asked about this idea of a 51st state. Mark Carney has said, no, thank you, but Trump isn't relenting. Let's watch Mark Carney's face here.
Now they're stepping it up, and that's a very important thing. But never say never. Never say never.
And, you know, there he is. He's laughing, Heather, right? He's sort of like wiggling his eyebrows a little there. He's doing a little,
yeah.
That's it. But I think this is.
That's it. That's the moment where Mark Carney wiggled his eyebrows and he's like, almost a little waft of Justin Trudeau coming through him. This is embarrassing, guys. What is this? Mark Carney was noticeably uncomfortable. He praised Donald Trump the entire time. The White House comes out with a video afterwards praising Mark Carney. Obviously, there's some sort of deal here. Maybe one where Brookfield shielded Donald Trump and now Donald Trump helped Mark Carney to get elected. Maybe a deal like that.
This is significant because it was clearly something of a strategy to try to diffuse the tension. Now, it helped that Donald Trump was also, it seemed, determined to like Mark Carney. You know, he was asked by a reporter at one point yesterday, what is the biggest concession you're looking for from Canada? And the answer was friendship. I'm not sure who saw that coming.
The CBC just awful every day. We got this one from CP24. How much could Poilievre's by-election cost taxpayers? How much did Arrive Scam cost? How about how much did Mark Carney cost taxpayers dodging taxes for Brookfield? $5.3 billion. They won't cover that though because the Liberals pay them. So you see, this is CP24. The exact same thing here, posted by Judy Trin, CTV Judy Trin. As you see Jade responding on this one, now do the $11 billion Trudeau spent overseas on gender studies in other countries. So Judy's getting absolutely roasted on her Twitter. How did all of Trudeau's hotel and bar bills add up to? How much money was stolen by Liberal corruption? How much did Carney's by-election cost? Oh right, he stole $350,000 from Ruby Dalla's campaign. Melanie Joly spent $612,000 on alcohol-related expenses at her Department of Global Affairs in 2024. What kind of return did Canadians get on that expenditure? Paid and bought for Liberal government, how much is your salary subsidized by them? Is it the same as the others, $30,000 per reporter? This continues further as Judy Trin did a piece on this for CTV.
We are also getting a better sense of how much a by-election will cost once it's called. According to Elections Canada, the cost of a by-election is about $16.21 a voter. That means the bill for a new round of votes will hit at least $1.38 million. The earliest a by-election can be held is later this summer.
Okay, we've had enough of this nonsense. It just keeps going and going. This person here commenting on Judy making a stink about this. When Liberals called an unnecessary election in 2021 in the middle of the world event costing taxpayers $600 million, after the 2019 election cost $500 million. Meanwhile, the mainstream media's hero here, Mark Carney, only talked for 3 minutes and 18 seconds. Donald Trump, 29 minutes and 47 seconds. I like this post here by Alex Zoltan. It sums it up. Carney to Trump. You're a transformational president, sir. Trump to Carney. Never say never to the 51st state. And oh, and by the way, tariffs are still on because we don't want your cars, your steel, or anything else. Canadian mainstream media. Magnificent performance by Prime Minister Carney. Look at this Montreal publication here. Putting this photo up of Mark Carney mimicking Trump. Do you think Carney would have got elected if he was doing this during the election? Liberal voters got completely tricked and fooled. They should feel ashamed of themselves. Meanwhile, back on CBC, Doug Ford tried to divide Conservatives during the election and is paying off in spades at the CBC.
Acknowledging the frustration in her province over the results of last week's federal election and amplifying the minority of Albertans that want to channel that into a referendum on separation. That risks undermining the work of other premiers like Ontario's Doug Ford, who's been working flat out for Team Canada.
This is a time to unite the country, not people saying, oh, I'm leaving the country, or I'm doing this, I'm doing that. You know, united we stand, divided we fall.
I don't tell him how he should run his province, and I would hope that he doesn't tell me how I should run mine. But
So we're going to get to this clip right now because Doug Ford's an absolute buffoon.
he and I have a great friendship. We don't agree on everything. In fact, I think we supported different people in the last federal election. And so we don't have to agree on everything. But what I will say is we have a constructive conversation at the coffee table. I continue to look forward to having a constructive conversation with him at the coffee table. But he's the Premier of Ontario. I'm the Premier of Alberta. We just have different issues that we have to respond to in our respective jurisdictions. I don't tell him how he should run his province, and I would hope that he doesn't tell me how I should run mine. But we have a very respectful relationship, and I hope that continues. As most Albertans know, I have repeatedly stated I do not support Alberta separating from Canada. I personally still have hope that there is a path forward for a strong and sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. So I am going to do everything within my power to negotiate a fair deal for Alberta with the new Prime Minister. My party quite clearly in their founding documents came together and they support a strong, united Canada. Protecting constitutional sovereignty, and that's what I've been doing.
That's hilarious. She's calling out Doug Ford. He likely did vote for Mark Carney. I like how she just calls it straight.
I forget about political stripes, by the way. We have a prime minister down there, and he's going to be sitting down, and he's going to give it everything he can. This is a time to unite the country, not people saying, oh, I'm leaving the country, or I'm doing this, I'm doing that. You know, united we stand, divided we fall.
This guy's unbelievable. He's the biggest hypocrite ever. Doug Ford, the great Canadian buffoon, you bet. With that, we've got CTV putting out this protest group hoping to add 200 plus names to Pierre Poilievre's Alberta by-election. CTV covers news when it goes against Poilievre. When it goes against Mark Carney, though, it's crickets. Like, seriously, like, where are they on any of this? Even just what I reported yesterday, this one, that Blacklocks reporter and Rebel News came out with, this self-serving contract here for Brookfield. Mark Carney set this up $157 million. Where are they? Where are they on all these conflicts of interest that Mark Carney and Brookfield have? Where are they on all these connections with Donald Trump and Donald Trump's team? And where are they with all the connections that Mark Carney, Brookfield have with carbon capture and carbon credits? Where's CTV? They're only there when it comes to praising Mark Carney. We've got this posted here showing how much money gets sent to Canadian media. We've got Canadian Press, $1.3 million, Globe and Mail, $2 million, Metroland, $1.9, Post Media, $4.2 million, Black Press Group, $1.3, 18,000, 400,000, 38, 20,000, 11,000, 44,000, 10, 20, 16, 55, 34, 24, 13,000. The biggest one on here, CBC, $1.44 billion. Dwarfs all of these combined. Moving over to CTV, we got a panel with Scott Reed here. What do you think Scott has to say, considering his son works for the Liberal Party?
All right, I want to bring in CTV's political commentator, Scott Reed. What was your takeaway from the meeting yesterday in the Oval and beyond?
I clearly passed the first test. Everyone says, oh, well, he's going to be sitting down next to the president. Will the president go off like a rocket? Will he reach over and try to physically dominate him? Will he be respectful? Will he ramble and wander off like he did? But by and large, look, as odd and as strange as this setting was, it was a respectful encounter. Mark Carney was confronted with the question of the 51st state, handled it shrewdly, cleverly. President decided not to turn that into a confrontation. And so there you have it. Now we're into a world of engagement. This first date has been passed. And, what a weird first date it must have been for Mark Carney.
Yeah. And despite, the fact that they sat there for, I think, almost a half an hour before Carney was really meaningfully brought into the conversation, it was Carney who really got the line of the day by telling Trump, Canada is not for sale. There's some pieces of real estate, Donald, that, Mr. President, that are not for sale, and Canada's not one of them. So
Carney got the line of the day. You sure it was that one, or was it when Carney was praising Donald Trump, calling him a transformational president and gushing about him? Elbows up. Looks like CTV anchors should have some psychological courses to really acknowledge what was happening in the Oval Office. Mark Carney's posture and behavior was embarrassing. He looked like a small kid in provincial office. In reality, the situation with Donald Trump and Mark Carney in the office, there's not a lot of pushback one can do. If you push back a lot, then what happens? Then you get the situation with Zelensky, where then Trump and the team will just dogpile onto the person. But the fact that Mark Carney lied about his entire engagement strategy, elbows up, I'll fight back, Canada's strong, I'm not going to get pushed around, all that kind of stuff. Then he goes to the Oval Office and he's licking Trump's boots the entire time. He didn't push back against Trump. He wasn't Canada strong. It was just another lie from Mark Carney. And the fact that he did this here, that, like, come on. Like, Mark, you got something on your nose there, buddy. I mean, really, the smart strategy to dealing with Trump is to show him some praise and praise things that are really going well in America, like their deportations, cracking down on the border stuff. That's actually really good. The Doge program. Mark Carney not mentioning that because he doesn't want that in Canada. Praising things in an honest way that are going well in America right now, holding firm on what Canada needs, and say that's what you're going to do. Instead, what did Mark Carney say he was going to do? He said he's going to push back against Trump. The relationship is over. Puffing his chest out like he's some peacock trying to put on a display of power and strength. And then the first thing Mark Carney does when he gets the Oval Office is just start licking Trump's boots. Mark Carney's a two-faced liar.
Canada's new far-left prime minister, he once threatened to seize capital from companies that do not advance Canada's climate radical agenda. Take a look.
We need to ultimately get to a point where every financial decision is taking climate change into account, the impact on the transition, and we actually drop the adjective sustainable because it's just what finance professionals do. On the risk side, we need the banks to look at the risks around the climate transition, which then flip to opportunities. On the opportunity side, it's really about looking for and at transition plans from all companies and backing those who are part of the solution and taking capital away from those who are part of the problem.
Taking capital away from those who are part of the problem. That's right. If you don't do as Mark Carney says, you're part of the problem.
Now, in addition to using the climate crisis to impose government control over businesses, aka socialism, Carney is also a big fan of censorship. In fact, in April, he threatened America's social media platforms with a not-so-veiled shot at X. Take a look at this.
Large American online platforms have become seas of racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and hate in all its forms. And they're being used by criminals to harm our children. My government will act.
Just to be clear, that there is no free speech in Canada. If you say or write something the government finds offensive or labels as misinformation, you can actually get arrested. Carney is offended by our freedom of speech. He seemingly wants to ban our social media platforms from his country and shut down all dissent. He wants to use the climate crisis hoax as an excuse to steal from our businesses and control their means of production inside of Canada. So the president is right to hold them accountable. Now, the great part of our friendship will absolutely continue. If needed, we will always defend Canada, but the free ride part, that part's over.
Just imagine if a mainstream media in Canada was speaking like this. You would just never hear it. It's always so far left in our country.